Welcome back to another episode of Speaking Tongues. I'm here with Dr. Silvanna Udz. Silvanna is the founding member of the National Creole Council in Belize. In addition to ongoing Belize Creole language inputs, she also spent 7 years as an assistant professor teaching English in Taiwan at Ming Cuan University, researching the embryonic standardization of East Asian Englishes. Previously, she worked at the University of Belize and at its pre-amalgamated colleges, teaching either full-time or part-time since 1981. Currently, she's an adjunct assistant professor at Galen University in Belize. Her current focus with Belize Kriol and the National Creole Council of Belize is working with a team on updating the current Belize Kriol-English dictionary. Thank you for joining me today, Silvanna. How are you?
Not bad. All is good, Miss Ellie. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Thank you for joining me, and I'm so happy to talk to you about Belizean Creole and to learn from you today and to, for my listeners to have a chance to learn from you today as well. I like to start each episode with the same question, and that is, what is your first language and which languages have you learned to speak?
Belize Creole, Kriol. But we also talk about dual first languages, dual bilingualism, because equally English was sort of imposed back then.
Mm-hmm.
So you did talk your Creole, you're talking your Creole. Where they go on? Why? You look good, good, good.
Mm-hmm.
But you're equally saying, yeah, he's quite handsome, because that was the language and still is the official language of the schools and country. So I heard a new term the other day at a meeting I was last week. You would have loved it, Ellie. It's the University of Belize started an Indigenous Languages Institute, some name like that, last year
Mm-hmm.
under its Faculty of Education. And they had a first meeting to try and touch on language policy, because we have the old excuses don't hold water. We have a dictionary. We have a grammar book. And not just for Creole, for Garifuna, for, of course, we're updating and things like that. So basically, what's that trying to say is Creole is more than just for jokes in the church and all that. And growing up way back when, don't you talk that, speak English, because
Mm-hmm.
of more input, input, but not meaningful input many times.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Creole is my first language, Creole is my first language. Um, and English is the official language. I call it my second language, but really in the, should I say, reading atmosphere I grew up with my parents and all of that, basically it's almost like a dual first language.
Mm-hmm.
But if you follow dual nativism labeling, but Creole first language, English second, Spanish third, and I dare not say basic Chinese fourth, but I could say, "Wo aini, I love you," and "Shishoshen, bathroom," and "Ni hao," because I was in Taiwan a while.
Oh,
But
cool.
actually, among a lot of expats too. No
Yeah.
excuse, though. No excuse for not getting more of this next international language as Mandarin is fast becoming,
Yeah, yeah. Tell
or
me
has become.
tell me a bit about, you said you have Creole, your first language, English is also used. And you touched a bit on this in your answer, but what tell us more about what the response was when you're young, you're growing up and you're speaking Creole. Did people discourage you from speaking it? Why did they discourage you from speaking it? And what were some of the, I guess, common things that you heard about why you shouldn't speak Creole?
And what I'm saying applies to pretty much the region of Creole speakers, not just Belize Creole. Jamaican, Patois now called Jamaican, but they're Creole, and not just the English lexified Creoles, but the Haitian Creole and all the rest. So Haitian Creole is one of the first, right, that got its orthography and all that. But generally, the idea was among these 77 plus million Creole speakers worldwide, it will mess up your English. It will keep you back from learning English. When in fact, we know and has been proven, at least in research, what we need is a large scale 6-year project, and those in the Creole program with transition to English or maintenance program actually do well in all the exams or better. That will be the money in the bank proof.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea was that you give a lot of that input, like immersion. And the classroom was the only place to immerse it. But as we know from Krashen and all of you all with second language background, basically you acquire that language by meaningful input, by using it, by, the way the baby does. You try to simulate that without all these rules. Although at adult and up, puberty and up, the rule governed behavior does help, because can work with metacognition. But
Mm-hmm.
the idea was give it, give it, give it. Now, you'll say, how come some of you, this was one of the early 1990s responses to our outreach, that look, Creole language, such so that now look what I just bought. Done by somebody who taught herself.
I love that.
Yeah, I should have sent you one, the Creole writing system, and
Mm-hmm.
consistently uses it with little proverbs. Right now, I'm in the December one,
Mm-hmm.
little proverbs and things.
December.
See, isn't
Yes.
that good? The only reason I don't mark it is because I use it for teaching purposes too. Whenever I have a little Creole orientation, so I buy them
Yeah.
for that. So this is how I know we come a long way. The school isn't the only way to teach a language, all
Mm-hmm.
right? To develop pride in your national languages.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, especially in the context of this whole thing is like since World War II, interest in, maybe if we teach them UNESCO type interest, teach them interest, the skill of literacy in something there's already, show them the symbols for that song they make, whether or not English or Spanish or whichever internet French makes it. Then they learn literacy. And now we can transfer that to the learning of other languages.
Mm.
That whole thing is really since World War II kind of development, and really late, would you say mid 70s, and definitely the 80s with Crashen and them that listen. It's not just give them the English or the target language. It's got to be meaningful input.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't have to stamp out this one. You could use the first language.
Mm-hmm.
So that is in the context of all of that. You could see me 1960s in primary school. It was speak English. It
Mm.
will mess up. But my daddy was also Mr. Reader's Digest and National Geographic. Then you order it and it come by mail and one shop sell it and lots of things. So we always had that. And like library, you sign out when you want borrow that from daddy because he keep. So we were reading. And
Yeah.
once you have the song symbol and you read a lot, you won't develop this crazy English. You will
Mm-hmm.
learn all the exceptions if you're motivated enough. But
Mm-hmm.
imagine the situation with the Creole child who talks some of the prettiest Creole, but gets home and has to help sell bread and bun, help wash up, electricity or something, now sharing a room. Who have time for sit down and try read the Lee comic books in English and all that at that point? You see?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, this sociolinguistics is not just Creole is a language. It's also give the child the benefit of at least easier learning literacy. It's also a practical thing, but then you need the tools. Oh, you need to have the orthography, of course, and all that. So that is where, like me and my thing come in terms of the Belize Kriol project back when.
Yeah.
And what makes it exciting is when you do things like your research, like your interest in it, or when my own dissertation research, when the group, it actually worked. This kid was quiet, doesn't talk. IT Vet was a vocational school, one of the schools in the project. And when she was that kid doesn't talk. So when I'm talking about doing the Creole part, then we show them how in English you do it this way, because they were 14 to 19-year-olds. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, look, the gecko, the gecko like push out the tongue. You know, the gecko that runs on the walls.
Yeah.
And the little quiet boy, guys, who never says anything in English class, math class. Miss, that wrong. My must say, lang out the tongue. That little kid hasn't shut up since. He became the expert in the class
Oh, okay.
because of his first language. So
Right.
now we try say good. Now in English, remember we have to do that sickening es. It pushes out, but in Creole you don't have to. Hey, in
Mm.
Mandarin you don't have to. My point is that child came alive. And I saw that if I needed any more proof, that kid and following up. So that kid went from the pretest of about 30 points out of 100 to about 55, 60. Still not 70, but hey, that's a
Mm-hmm.
100% increase in the post test.
Yeah.
Now
That's
there's no system that carrying it forward though. So now that
yeah.
was it for them, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that, but like, being in class, and being comfortable expressing yourself in Creole, and then you're being tested in English and you're reading in English, there's a disconnect there. So I would imagine that some kids can probably pick up the slack quickly, but there are kids like maybe this one who were at risk of falling behind because that didn't connect for him, maybe.
Also, the parents. Remember, we had to convince the parents too, because these kids were under
Right.
whatever age,
Mm-hmm.
14, and so they had to sign on. Some of the parents immediately said, "Oh yeah, I hear about one of the work with that dictionary, which came out 2007, and we were doing a lot of it." He said, "And I talk broad Creole." We said, "Pretty Creole, broad, raw Creole." In her mind, maybe that wasn't pretty, but was there some of the prettiest, truest Creole you could have said, real Creole, not yet so much Anglais way up on the
Mm-hmm.
acrylic. And with Astor, so some parents immediately agreed. Look at me picnic head, whatever you could get in there, whichever way. Because heaven knows what and it don't work. Some
Mm-hmm.
others who really we had to convince because it was the class. We couldn't separate Miss Teacher from,
Yeah.
and we had to, and one of the things we did was, Miss, what is something always bother you in English? We're talking Creole to the
Mm-hmm.
parent. She said, I don't know why I have to always, and they tell me past tense. You have to stick to where you start with. So you know why? Because in Creole, the rule is when you don't tell people the past tense, you don't have to keep the verb. So English, I will say, I danced last night. It was wonderful. I wanted to eat. But in Creole, I say, me is my past tense marker. I'm showing her this. Me dance, I'm spelling it in the standard Creole. Me dance last night. I eat up. I don't have to say me eat, me want,
Mm-hmm.
because I have established tense. It's more context. And it's like the light bulb come on with the parent, right? The light bulb came on, and she said, "Oh, so I have to know that in English." Well, I want to tell that picnic and tell him the same thing by English says. I will tell that kid because they're telling him the same. I said, "Don't worry, miss, this little class we're trying to do, this research intervention, that's part of it. We're working on it, 3 main tenses. We only had 14 weeks. We could only do so much,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
try and cement something for the post-test." But basically, her eyes lit up too. So for also adult and continuing education to
Yeah. Right.
empower.
Right. Yeah. Can you talk to me about how the language is constructed and how and you mentioned the tense marker in your
So,
last example, but let us know how the language is constructed, how we form sentences, some grammatical points that you think are interesting or worth knowing.
okay.
Anything else that you find interesting?
Well, one of the things I found that most of my, and I'm using English, of course, because of your audience. And when I break into Creole, I will try and remember to translate, but some of it you'll get from context. All Creole languages were formed pretty much, we follow the theory of in situ, like in the situation of enslaved persons and colonial. You can call them master, the colonial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. And so here, imagine the situation. You have people grabbed, forced from many different groups in West Africa. So they themselves might not understand each other. So on one enslaved plantation in Belize alone, 12 different West African languages. So they have to
Right.
try and understand each other. Plus, together, have to try and understand white man. I'm saying white man, not derogatory, but the man was white. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Or I have to understand the
Facts.
colonial master,
That's the
right?
fact.
I never say I'm black colonial master yet in the pictures.
Right. Right.
So anyway, he come with English. He's coming with English. But which English is he coming with? Because
Mm-hmm.
some of those enslaved masters, that people that may try to get rid of themselves, but must have made all favors, were people that were trying to get them away, but they probably owe them favors. They weren't the most educated of so-called educated Englishmen, right? So
Mm.
whichever part they came from. So like that, may we like to do. There's some research into, is it Devon, somewhere in England, where
In
they say,
England,
is
Devon,
is
yeah.
my mom that? I don't know if it's in Devon, but in England, or Liverpool, is my mom that? Is my dad that? We have that. My mom, my pa, is that linked to that? Because that But what we do know is me in front of the verb is also our past tense marker, even as it's that my personal pronoun, me ma, me pa, me sister. All right. But that use of it as the pronoun in front is coming from how that white man probably said, is me mom, is me dad, who knows?
Right,
But the
right.
markers now. So now you have this 12 people come, one is speaking Igbo, one is speaking Shwit, and all the Africa, West African languages, all right? So they're doing their grammatical markers like the family of West African languages. So pre-verbal. Whatever the vocab is, it will be a pre-verbal way. They don't keep indicating past tense on the marker, something. No need to say for boys. I don't tell you for. Why do I need this on the verb, right? So the plural is with a de in ours. Our marker is the gal de, the boy de. It's a post-noun, post-nominal word, unit.
Yeah.
And you don't have to mark it if the sentence is clear. For boy. I don't have to say the for boy then came home, me come home. I could just say the for boy because I don't tell you for. Why have to mark it too? Right? You're right. So English is so redundant. It's actually a blessing when teaching the language with all
Yeah.
its exceptions. But
Yeah.
most languages aren't redundant like that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's no need. So just getting that concept makes a student like your high school remedial English, to call it that, just says, oh, but this thing, I could work this out. It's not some esoteric thing accessible only to the educated. It's
Mm-hmm.
a simple rule that's different from my rule. Just
Mm-hmm.
need to practice it the way I practice how I make rice and beans.
Right.
So yeah, all Creole languages, well, our Creole language and all the English lexified ones for sure, they come from this West African family of languages, grammar based, pre-verbal, and some of those things. Fronting is something Creole languages do structurally.
Okay.
Whereas English to intensify will say, I am extremely tired. You are extremely beautiful, Ellie. I could say in Creole, that pretty, you're pretty. I front the main point I'm making.
Huh.
It's called fronting,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we worked with Ken Decker well, he worked with us, I should say. He did his dissertation, but committed to came and lived in Belize, didn't just do it from afar, and helped us a lot with getting an orthography going in terms of what other countries are doing. And so we are in here helping and all pretty much documented the grammar.
Mm-hmm.
But then from that, we get it into a little transitional primer for people who are
Yeah.
already fluent in
Mm.
speaking Creole,
Mm-hmm.
but they are monoliterate in English. So it's
Right.
written for that audience. So we won't have the accent marks for someone like you to know, do you say uyayay for this little hair that, for we black people here, we have curly up hair. We
Mm-hmm.
call it uyayay. So
Really?
you de pull me uyayay. No, we're tracking the origin. Is it from uyayay? It hurts because when something hurts, we like go uyayay. So is it now why people, and this is not just me, it's my granny, and so, ay man, me kaya comb your uyayay. You wake up and all nappy up and so on your
Wow. Yeah,
uyayay.
yeah.
So the picnic, now why you the come out the uyayay? Because she not deal with that. She just hurry clean up her hair, right? So things like that. You won't know if it's uyayay, uyayay, because we don't have
Mm-hmm.
the accent marks, but the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Creole person will know.
Mm-hmm.
So the next step would be for the Creole in the diaspora who are joining up asking, yeah, but how do you pronounce it? Because I sung American when I say it. And my granny, who dead now, but
Mm.
moved to the States and lived with us, would talk to us in Creole. And they will remember 1960s phrases like, got a bush before bush. Take out of the bush, but you can't take the bush out. Nobody says that these days, only old people. But they will come after not coming to Belize for 20 years and say things like that. But
Yeah.
they have lost the Creole. They just want, but they want it. So now we need to have a dictionary with the accent marks and more than just, but that wasn't our purpose. I would be
Mm-hmm.
dead before that be my purpose. I did try reach, at least me. The younger ones could take that on.
Mm-hmm.
I was always motivated by reaching that Creole speaker, that excellent Creole speaker, especially the picnic them, the children, to let them know this is not some fancy language, English. You can learn it, but you don't have to stamp out your granny's language.
Well, let me ask you, as you're talking about the accent marks and people not knowing, people outside of Belize and not knowing how to pronounce it or pronouncing it differently or how something was pronounced 60 years ago. As you move through Belize, does the accent change when you're speaking Creole? Do people in certain parts of the country accent words differently than in other parts of the country? And what is that like as you're moving around the country?
Now, this is the most interesting part of realizing Creole is a language, so it's dynamic.
Yeah.
So, like all languages, there are regional variations or dialects. So, a
Yeah.
dialect of Creole, but we keep away from the word dialect because
Yeah.
it has come to mean lesser than,
Of
even though it just
course.
means a variety. So, we
That's
just say
a bad word on this podcast. We don't
yeah,
use the
you
word
know what I mean?
dialect.
Yeah, we say a variety. So we are just adding into the second edition that we're working to get out by middle next year. Um, she. She is how people from the South, especially people who have Garifuna as a first language or who were taught by some teachers who have Garifuna as a first language, because the Garifuna teachers pretty much educated half of Belize in the past,
Okay.
and could speak better Quechua than the Quechua speaker many times. And, I have a good friend, Mr. Caetano, who he and his brother, they speak all the national languages. They're like teachers, some of the best teachers, right? So
Wow.
these people, I mean, this she. So Belize City Creole people would say she, all right? If we not say it can mean he, she, or it,
Okay.
all right? So, but I could say fishy, which would mean her, fishy book. So then I will say SHEE, fishy. But
Hmm.
if I am from Crooked Tree area, more Belize rural or another area, I might say fa, or sorry, Toledo. My friend Lila, who died, my friend, Belize's icon, Creole icon Lila. Vernon will say fashi, fa, fa. So
Fa.
fa, fe, fo, fo is one with the most variations that we've tracked for
Mm-hmm.
FOR. English is for, or when we form the possessive,
Hmm.
fishy, fashi. Um, However, that she, my friend Gwen Eunice Gonzalez, who is a great educator, first language Garifuna, worked with the ministry for years, she will always say she because that's how she says it, Garifuna influenced, right?
Hmm.
So we're putting that in as another accepted as another variety, well used. All right, she. So that's something. My mom's caregiver, one of her caregivers, is very, very mestizo looking, but her first language is Creole. She grew up in a Creole community in the South, in Punta Gorda. She doesn't say she said, a fishy that. I said, where mommy rag? The fishy that. And that's when I said, but wait. And that's when she said, well, I may grow up the PG, and so on. So, it's such a distinct regional variety.
Hmm.
People from Orange Walk, with students, and Cayo, Spanish they speak at home, first language, many of them. Some Maya, all right, as well, one of the Maya languages. So they will say, Gala, they're right here to walk under the rain. Girl, I'm right here walking in the rain, but under the rain. City people, Belize city people, we won't say that. We will say, I walk in the rain. But in
Mm.
Spanish, debajo de la lluvia
Oh,
means
yes.
under the rain. So
Yes.
they come from Spanish, translating it to Creole.
Hmm.
All right.
That was what I was going to ask you too. If the Spanish spoken in Belize, if you notice, does it kind of mimic the same structure as the Creole when they're
Well,
speaking?
you
Have you
would need to
noticed it?
talk to Nikti. She's in our language group, and her research is about Spanish users
Hmm.
of Creole and other languages. So
Yeah.
I can't talk to that offhand, but ask me again what you said. Has it mimicked? Well, the under the rain is there just translating direct to English and went
Okay.
from English to Creole pronunciation.
Hmm.
But they
Yeah.
won't say I was walking under the rain. They will say estaba caminando debajo de la lluvia, or they will say a midiwak under the rain.
Oh, I see.
Now, what we're saying is that in English, if they, depending on their level of English, they'll say, I was walking in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, what we're seeing though is that we have the new immigrants, shall we say, from Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala.
Mm-hmm.
In the 1980s, when we had that mass influx of immigrants because of escaping civil war
Yes.
and UN refugee status and all of that, when they came as first come, well, the latest first come big wave, they needed to assimilate even more strongly. So they went straight from learn the whatever Spanish they spoke to Creole
Mm-hmm.
and trying to learn English in the schools. And in fact,
Right.
UN started specific ESL courses, and we used, with permission, some of their material to try to turn into Creole to English.
Hmm.
All right. Anyway, from Spanish to, so they were learning Creole because that's how they assimilate on the school ground. And so they would be saying the water. But now the new immigrants are coming and they have family and they have some auntie who had migrated to Belize in that first wave and kids born here. And so when they come, they're saying the water. And they aren't bothering to go water because water is what they can use among enough of them are here now.
Mm-hmm.
So will that now work its way into an accepted variety Spanish influence, the way it says
Ah. I would love to hear about creating this dictionary and standardizing the orthography of the language and what some considerations that had to be taken in order to complete or work on this project.
First and foremost was, is there a will? I mean, who wants to write in Creole? Because the first thing is, well, we talk it, but we have English to write, and only we can understand the Creole. Yes, but how when granny dies, like old Mr. Belize, who used to say, and when I reached the riverbank, no, there's no record of that except he collected a little book. And how do we know the story of the old Chiclero man the way Granddad said it, right? If we dilute it. So who is writing? The singers were writing, likely. So we got people who were saying, listen, we want to sing it the way you want it when you did. So let
Mm.
us write it one way. So we got workshops going. Then the first thing was, what orthography? You could make a triangle and say that's how you pronounce A for water. W triangle T A. But then your computer doesn't have the triangle. So let's use, we work with, do we go alphabetic system? Do we go symbols? Do we go with characters? Let's go with what's easiest. We're living with Spanish and English. Let's go alphabetic. Going alphabetic, what symbols do you want? IPA, like how
Mm.
some in the region went, like Jamaican went. So Easter would be IISTA, Easter,
Okay.
in IPA. But we decided to use one of the many symbols English used. And where there were none, we created like the double A for that distinctive sound.
Mm-hmm.
So we went with meet, MEET, Easter, EESTA. Anything with long E will always be EE.
EE.
Anything with long A will always be AY. So stay, STAY, will always look like English stay because it's always AY. But when you have a true Creole word like saute, which means until, I mean a word that was created from compounding. So stay, saute. All right. So until. So stay until I see you again. It just became saute. I see you again, right? So that A will always be AY. So this is all that person who says, I can't read and write Creole, but they talk it. This is all they have to learn, yet they say it's hard.
Mm.
The long
Mm-hmm.
symbols, everything else, they will learn easy because the P is the P, the consonants. With some things, we don't have C. We have S or CH
Okay.
because S is soft C and K is hard C.
Okay.
So cake is AY is long A. So cake, how do you spell cake? KAYK, cake.
KAYK. Okay.
Now in Jamaica, they not only say it a little different, they go cake. Is me
Kick.
cake that?
Mm-hmm.
Cake me I want to eat. Cake. And they're using IPA, so they go IEK. So the only long vowel, cake. But they're using IPA just like Nicaragua. Doesn't matter. I just need to know what are your symbols for the long vowel sounds.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So they also do some things in Jamaica we don't do. They do aspiration at the front a lot. Overhaul. All right. Me I overhaul my vehicle. In Creole here, I would say, I want overhaul my vehicle. I know I say overhaul. But then I tend to, we're making an argument that even though they say aspiration, the linguists say happen at the front of a word. We are saying, and we could say that if we did do it, right? We did say, our group has been saying for years, we aspirate at the end of some words, short E, short O. Something like say, go, or as we say, fag up the mirror. We fag up the mirror, you aspirate, right?
Right.
Even though technically it should be maybe aspirate at the front or something. We say, well, we are make that our way. We explain why we spell it. So, I mean, it's such fun. You can have fun too when you're
Yeah,
creating, right?
of
And you
course.
just have to get people to know what sound and to want to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we see changes. We continue to see ad hoc spellings, but at least we're seeing people,
Right.
they're
Embrace it.
using the Creole more and
Yeah.
more. It's the lingua franca. So the Spanish, the Garifuna, whoever, in one setting, you'll hear, like at our meeting last week, we had Maya first language. Everybody speaks English, but when we break into discussion, everybody talking Creole. And the man was saying, but what are indicators? The visiting sociolinguist from Mexico is saying, but what are the indicators that we have to get that Creole actually is a lingua franca? I said, what do you think? What has been happening here? And he laughed and said, yeah, you're living. This meeting is living. It's a lingua franca. It's
Yeah.
the lingua franca of
The
Belize.
lingua franca. Right.
Yeah.
When you're deciding that there's the K is gonna there's no C, there's gonna be the K. When you're deciding that the AY is going to represent, and you're doing this by committee.
Committee and testing. We used to
Okay.
bandwagon on Radio Belize, then it became whatever, a big radio station, had a village life. And once a month, they would go to a village, Belize, some of the best Creole speakers, and nationwide. Now, our little committee back then, just getting the council started, we're talking early 1990s. We did have, it's my guess, it's Myrna's guess, it's boss, it's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So we asked their permission. Listen, if we could go, we paid it $25. It was then, I think, $10 for cultural groups to buy a little booth space, and we test. We'd buy
Okay.
chocolate and so. So we say, you like say AY or you like say IE or you, which of the ways? Here's how English does O. Both. B-O, how you spell both in English? Quotes. O-A,
BOAT.
right?
Yeah.
B-O-A-T.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, C-O-A-T, but it does rope, R-O-P-E, vowel, consonant, silent E. It also does though, T-H-O-U-G-H. 11 ways you could say to have
Right.
long O, because
Mm-hmm.
it's where the word was borrowed from, okay, stolen from, if you will, depending
Right.
on your linguist, your socio. All right, where it came from. Dutch, refridge, the D and G, or the refridge, you only need J, refridge,
Mm-hmm.
all right? But because it was borrowed wholesale with the symbols the Dutch used for their sound or whatever.
I
Because
did
your
not know
voice is
that.
really doing J, like
Yeah.
that IE, you really, to get A, you really begin with the I.
Mm-hmm.
I gets you to A. That's the IPA thing, right? But we
Yeah.
decided we were going with this because we tested it. Now, in doing the second edition, everything online and so on, we have people working on it online with us, testing in their areas. But what we have gotten now is that substratum that wasn't strong when we began. Television, American television, Dora the Explorer. We
Yeah.
now have the kid going to school saying, Gal, teacher, she didn't move my bag. We need to be nice to each other because that's what Dora says, right? So
Right.
or something like that in perfect American English. And also the music, the rap, the Jamaican rap scene, the Jamaican, it's
Dance
beyond reggae
hall
now,
and
dance hall.
yeah, yeah.
So now the Belizean rapper, who in the past, not rapping, would be singing, would say, I dey go, I dey walk down my plantation, whatever, will now say, I walk, because of following the Jamaican rap, the
Mm-hmm.
whole genre. So challenges, but is it a challenge or is it you don't stop it? So things like these, if we could get it systematized in the schools and all that, that everyone, because it's a lingua franca, should at least have a basic literacy in the lingua franca, and it will help you to learn your internet. Always sell it with that message,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
With the parents.
Hello, language lovers. If you enjoyed this episode of Speaking Tongues, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the Speaking Tongues podcast on Apple Podcasts, and like and subscribe on Spotify and YouTube so that other language lovers like ourselves can find the show. If you've been a longtime listener of the show or even a recent listener, you can now pledge ongoing support for the show on buymeacoffee.com or on patreon.com. I like that you mentioned that you went out to people to ask them, because I think a lot of people, when they think of a dictionary, a lot of people still have the idea that there's a group of people in a room and they're telling you what's right or what's wrong. But what a dictionary is supposed to do is just be a record of language usage and what the people, it's supposed to reflect the way that people use the language. So I'm glad that you pointed that out, and hopefully people will reflect on that and understand that, especially when you see at the end of the year, like, oh, this word was just added to the dictionary, and people say, well, that's not a real word, but it's like, no, but it's in common usage, so that's what the
Like
dictionary is doing
hand
their job.
sanitizer. One word
Mhm.
going up now is hand sanitizer.
Uh-huh.
Hand sanitizer. So how are words formed that aren't just borrowed?
Hmm.
Borrowed, and maybe pronunciation and accent does something with it. So we always chop off the ER among the English lexified, which means
Hmm.
about 70% of its vocab came from England, even if we changed it. So anything with that ER, farmer becomes farmer, tractor, doctor, either doctor, Udz are going to the doctor. All right. So that's a standard thing that happens. But another way is, apart from clipping, is compounding. So hand sanitizer, the teacher being interviewed. I
Hmm.
actually was in Taiwan, and I heard it because I would be listening to Belize news for when somebody is excited. So they aren't thinking. They're just, I mean, they're thinking, but they aren't saying, oh, let me say it in English, right? They're just coming out because their son was shot or whatever. So
Hmm.
COVID and people were dying. So she's saying, yes, and now we run out, the stores run out of hand sanitizers at one point. And we can't, we not even got, she said, we don't even have hand sanitizers anymore. No, maybe she just slipped. Well, I immediately wrote, we're still doing the regular article where we got to say in the
Hmm.
newspaper online. Hand sanitizer. And we checked with the committee, which is now about 7 of us working online. And we keep listening to her for Hear It Again. I haven't heard it again, but we decided, you know what? We will put that as a word that has been formed. So we don't get any feedback. We've put it out. We'll
Hmm.
see.
How do people text one another? How do new words come in? Not just like the hand sanitizer example that you gave, but if there is something that's widely used and you're noticing it more, what is the decision like to put that into the dictionary?
The answer to that is trying to do best practice of what every other language, including English, grapples with neologisms. And when I say that, I mean new word, but it could not just a new word, but a new word to the register of use we're now using for Creole. So relegated in the past to recess, fun, jokes, scolding one kids, making love, talking intimately, Creole. But school, no. Oh, if I go to the doctor, I have to try and tell him in English what it is and so on, which of course, you might get misdiagnosed if you try to go that route sometimes. That's what we're trying to do with this language policy. I'm jumping around now, is to
Hmm.
try and push for the Constitutional Reform Commission. We're putting in our input that any message that has to do with emergency health needs to be in all the languages, the national languages, because immigrant language, working with the national languages, not just English.
Hmm.
And because they've had to, Red Cross, and so they've been doing that a while. They'll come and say, we want to put this message in Creole, Garifuna, and Maya about what to do to prevent cholera after a hurricane. So
Right.
they will make sure when they go to that lady using the river to wash clothes and drink and all that, that they will put it in Yucatec Maya or whichever language, because they want to reach the people
Hmm.
instead of English, and then some making sure that when they say a word that they understand it that way. All right, because you can't just say make sure it's just not too full. What is too full? All right, make sure it's full only to your giant pint or something like that. We want you to know how much Clorox to put in, not to
Right.
kill yourself with the Clorox with the cholera, right?
Well, I love Creole languages. And, we talked about this before we started recording, but I
Yeah.
love Creole languages. And I'm really excited to see where in the region, where these Creole languages are going to go. I'm excited to see that there are people like yourself who are focused on standardizing and focused on pushing this language and making sure that people know it's not a broken form of another language, a colonial language. And I think that's really important. I try to talk about this on the show as much as I can, that I think it's beautiful that our people have been able to take the pain of separation from their home, the pain of not being able to communicate with their, like you said, 11, 12 people along with them, and communicate in a common language, and create a language and create something that allowed them to communicate. And I think that is such a beautiful legacy, number one. And I think that is just magic. And I think that's really a testament to what people can do, what people can do with language, what our
Well,
people can
you
do
see,
with
that's
language.
it's magic. It's a language. If you go back to
Yeah.
LAD and language acquisition device or whatever is the latest thing, how the baby learns, right? So imagine the one thing we have in common is tree, chop, because we were a logwood
Hmm.
slave thing more than, I mean,
Yeah.
sugar too, but tree, chop, and if not, then you will get lashing or whatever, right? We will learn tree, even if we don't say tree, and we said tree. And
Hmm.
then when we said tree, we said tree too, because it
Yeah.
sounds the same, right?
Right. Right.
So we will all learn that, even though in Igbo language I might say it one way. In Kikungo, I might say it another way. In whatever, I'll say it another way. I
Hmm.
will learn tree so the white man will lash me.
Right.
So,
It's
but then
survival. It's
it's
survival.
survival. So it's the magic of survival, to
Right.
as you use your term. But then I will process it, because remember, some of these ancestors of ours were smart people. And never just, it could have been a doctor, it could have been a smart person.
Absolutely.
All right. So I mean, as a smart, I mean people with lives. All right. And so that person already processes language. So we may find that that thing with pre-verbal was common among all the West African family of languages. So how we make sense
Hmm.
of this input
Right.
became became standardized into pre-verbal. So from pigeon with just tree, chop, to I have to know it was yesterday. You and I have to have that context. But now I could let somebody else know if I say, it me chop it yesterday. So
Hmm.
when you have that speaker being raised with it already, where you're doing syntax, then syntactic markers are appearing. It might be for Jamaica, ago me ago. It might be de, our de is their past, like adigan last night, or adigan could mean past tense for them, but still it's pre-verbal. That's my
Yeah.
point.
Right.
Whereas it might be the ing for us, adigo, adi talk to you, I am talking to you
Hmm.
at the talk. But when in Jamaica, a part of Jamaica, I first heard at the talk, he was saying last night. And I said, but how you gonna say I am talking to you last night? You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And then as I'm listening, and that was way back in the 80s, I was starting to realize that we use before I even was
Hmm.
really into this thing.
Hmm.
That but they're doing it before the verb. That's my
Yeah.
point. That's the point I'm
Yeah.
making structurally, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You've painted such a lovely picture of Belize, and I, so far in this conversation, and I've seen how beautiful Belize is, and I would love to know from you, what are some cultural touch points of culture in Belize? What are things that people celebrate? What are things people enjoy doing? What are we eating? Who are we listening to? What's happening?
Well, multicultural, all right.
Hmm.
And then we have the immigrant cultures coming in, like a strong Lebanese culture, Taiwanese culture, quite strong now. In fact, sometimes you'll see signs with Mandarin Chinese
Oh,
in it.
wow.
It's not the actual Taiwanese, but the Taiwanese have a Hakka Association, which is a group in Taiwan, all right. the Hakka Association. So you have the immigrant and you have the national languages, which would be and their foods and their music. But they, as we call it, one big pulale, like a big mix up. All right. Uh, Pulale. How you gonna spell that? I is always A, not AW. So
Mm-hmm.
Manning, Maanin. Yard, me yard. Yard, Yaad. So Pulale, Pullaali. Because the Y is only used in our orthography for a glide.
Right.
Garden,
Oh,
cat,
okay.
candle. Other than that, it's SITI, city. So it's teachable. That's what the primer does. So there are some, it's a song-based system, but with some rules to make it practical.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And a few exceptions, but it's learnable. It's
Yeah.
nothing like your English, how most of the world's orthographies are, except this crazy English. That, but which is the global language, right? We all know how that came about. So I like rice and beans with salad and some meat. That's just and plantain, your
Mm-hmm.
typical Sunday dinner. But you could find that among all the cultures will say, oh yeah, that's Creole, but we eat it. Black dinner, which is reno with a black seasoning or
Ooh.
chimole. It's like a
Uh-huh.
black soup. We call it black dinner in Creole.
Mm-hmm.
Chimole or reno, it's called in Spanish. Any Creole eats that. You could find that on any Creole person's menu. I could make that.
What is the black dinner?
It's relleno, which is the one with the pork ball in it, and so, or
Yes.
chimole, which is quicker to make, but uses the same
Oh.
seasoning.
Okay.
But
Okay.
the relleno, escabeche is basically onion soup, but how you do your chicken first and your pepper and so.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody will eat that. Tacos, everybody will eat it. Garifuna hudut, which is could be done with the coconut or milk or the tomato based one, the coconut one nicer, I think. And fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody will look for hudud, but you can't always find it. Maybe Friday is hudud day. Anytime around Garifuna Settlement Day holiday, you'll find hudud. But
Okay.
other than that, only certain days, certain places, or you order it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one I would love to have available every day because it's so nice. Um, Kong soup. Everyone will eat that, even though it's anybody that fishes will eat
Mm-hmm.
that, or many Creole people. So panades, the empanada of Spanish. Everyone will eat that.
Okay.
So the food is, I don't like to say melting pot so much as garden salad, like the distinct things, but everybody will eat the tomato, will eat the lettuce. And the culture, because of music. Now you have to understand in the past, again, you could thank your enslaved masters,
Mm-hmm.
would separate the Creole and the Garifuna, the two black populations of Belize,
Yeah.
even if some look white black, right? With black ancestry, African ancestry, and black African ancestry.
Right.
So we're talking enslaved peoples when we're
Mm-hmm.
talking our history,
Yeah.
1600s and so. Basically, they would separate the Garifuna and the Creole because then we could gang up and overtake. So when the Garifuna came to Belize, then called Carib because they were Carib and Arakan Indian,
Mm-hmm.
you can look up the history of the St. Vincent and exactly that whole history.
Yeah.
They were to, okay, but keep to the south, 36
Mm.
miles away by river, by sea. So
Mm-hmm.
a derogatory term became the Creole person now is told, oh no, keep away. They're savages, cannibals. And then the Garifuna were told, one, and what about the Creole? Because if we come together, we could be more numbers and, stronger.
Right.
And so you'll find there aren't many words of Garifuna origin or Maya origin, except to do with Chiclero and Chicle days, or the Maya also, in the Creole language.
Hmm.
You won't find many because we were kept away. That's why we're excited about bringing in she as a variety of
Yeah.
she.
I
And
see.
yeah, and that was terrible. That was awful, right? So overcoming that is a reason we don't have many. But now, what has really helped to bridge, to erode that more and more, well, for me totally, but for the whole country, is the music.
Mm.
The strength of the Garifuna culture, the strength of the unity of the Garifuna Council, and also just the music. When you hear the Garifuna drumming, Creole has its Sambai drumming too, that many Creoles are relearning or just learning about through the National Creole Council and our great Creole Gales Point drummers, the late Myrna, etc. But punta music, through the music, now you find you could sing some Garifuna words. I could say Lidanda. I mean, I could say a few things. I want to learn Garifuna. I want every Belizean to be able to say, okay, Creole is my first language. I need a global language, English. I'll choose, say, or English and Spanish since I live in Belize. And you know what? For my elective, which would be mandatory if I were a prime minister or something, would be I want to choose Garifuna for my elective. I don't want French.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be fantastic?
That would be amazing.
And then like this song, I can't even say it, but I could sing it. Malate isiye gaya warugote. It's for I can flow with that because it's in a song. Love that is bad, jealousy is bad, bad love brings bad karma, and something like that it means, right? But I'm saying it's the punta music, it's the musicians that have bridged the gap where the linguists couldn't.
Right.
But now we want that Garifuna songwriter to write it in the standard Garifuna. That is Garifuna dictionary is out, but again, it's not in all this. There's a few target schools trying to, and the teacher, the interest of the teacher, right? Yeah. So it's not just about Creole; it's about national languages. But Creole is the lingua franca, and of course, it's my interest, so that's why I'm using more Creole examples.
Yeah. So for anyone who's interested in some of the materials that you've been working on or that you've been showing throughout this conversation, are they available online?
Yes, you could just Google Creole Dictionary Belize, and this comes up, a PDF. Hopefully you won't go and publish it on your own and sell it. We try to put in little things that it's only the PDF. And basically, we don't have a way of tracking that. And but you can get it online for educational uses and or your own use, but not to go and print and sell. Please help us, man, Lord, right?
How can we help? How can we help?
This podcast is a big help. You can read and write Creole. This will help you a lot if you're already a speaker of Creole. Again, if you are in the diaspora or a non-speaker, you want to know accent marks and so on. But one day we'll get these student volunteers read every word and put it in the app or whatever. And this is free online. The grammar book is free online. Many of the Anansi stories, I have a few PowerPoints. They can listen to local news, which is streamed live. And any story about a cop and a killer and a this person will be talking in Creole at some point, right? So there you go. I hate to say it that way, but crime and issues that matter, the bus situation, somebody chance in my picnic took advantage of my child. That person is just going to be speaking that heart
from the heart,
from the heart,
out of emotion.
For just general reference and so on, if you want something translated in standard Creole, and it's more than just a slogan or so, I will say I won't do it, but I'll put it to one of some people, and you need to consider some budgeting for them. Because these, I'm saying, if you have your whole text, mistranslate this to me and use the standard Creole. Duh, you try first if you speak Creole, right? I mean, will I get royalties from that? Will the council get royalties?
Right.
So I'm saying be aware these are people working.
Yes, people who need to make a living.
And if not, the council exists to guide, hopefully help to shape. And wherever you are putting up a big billboard with a slogan, we will beg you to let us help you.
Yes.
Because then we can't pay for what your outputs and your tracking of,
Yeah, of course. Well, I will add links to this information that you shared in the show notes for this episode so that people who are listening and are interested in having something translated or getting in touch or, helping you out with the dictionary, and they can get in touch with you. They can click those links and get in touch with you right away.
And one thing with any Creoles, Belize Creole people or Jamaican or so listening to this, and you say, oh, I have a new word. I bet you for their update, just go online and quickly check if we don't have it, because sometimes I get 10 words we don't have and I can't remember all of them and I have to stop and we have to check for
Right.
but send it nonetheless if it sounds like a true Creole word.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
take the time.
Silvana, thank you so much for this
Thank you.
conversation.
I am so glad. I love your background. I'm doing 2 online courses next semester and I have to get my background in order. And it's much better with this indeed. So I'll have to get the
Yeah.
big one. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed learning from you, and there's still so much more to learn, but I think this is a great introduction to Creole and how we can support the language usage. And
Thank you. And if you
yeah.
ever come to Belize, we want chukmot. Chukmot. We will sit and talk.
Yes.
Go and have a good cold beer and chukmot.
Oh man. Absolutely. That's what I need. I'd like to end each episode with the same question, just to have a little fun, maybe have some laughs. And I have a feeling that you're gonna have you're gonna have a good answer for this. Do you have any jokes, popular sayings, tongue twisters, cool slang words, idioms, words of wisdom, or words of advice in Creole to share and to teach us?
Oh, which we could use any from the calendar. One is like when somebody is very well dressed. All right, if it's Christmas, so I'll get dressed and go out for New Year's or something. It's, what she it dress up no puss back foot. We think that comes from. Look at her; she's dressed up like the back foot of a kitten. We think that
Oh.
comes from Puss in Boots. That English thing, dress up
Mm-hmm.
no puss back foot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting one with an etymology like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another funny one is like say I borrow something from you, right? And you tell me you have to return it at such a time and so on, and I forget or so, and I'm rushing now to do it. And I said, no worries, she won't mind. He said, listen, borrow gumbe, no play till daylight. You know, if you're borrowing something, return it before this. Borrow gumbe is at Creole drum.
Yes.
So you borrow it to play. You
Mm-hmm.
can't play until the sun comes up. You have to remember the owner and give it back.
Mm-hmm.
One for Christmas I'm seeing on the calendar here is Christmas they come, but I not see it yet. All right. I don't have I broke. I have no money to buy. Christmas they come, but I don't see it yet. All right. And
That's very useful.
yeah, that's very useful.
That's universal, I think.
Uh-huh. Yeah. To sweet up somebody. Man, look at Ellie. Ellie vexed with me. No worry. I want to sweeten up with this gift, with this food.
Mm-hmm.
Sweeten up, right?
Mm-hmm.
An interesting one that I don't know the etymology. When I want to say from this point onward, I will support the Creole language. From here go back, I want de with the Creole language. From here going backwards, but it really means from here forward.
From here forward.
Back. It's almost like we've looked ahead in the future, and now looking back, we're saying from that point is when I began.
Yeah.
But from Yago back always is an interest. My mom is
from ya go back.
From ya meaning from here going backwards.
Yeah, go back. Okay.
From this point going back, but it means but back already happened, right?
Yeah.
So it really means from this point going forward.
That is an interesting one.
Yeah, and I don't know the etymology of that.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know why, but that's a good Creole one. There's so many of them. We put a lot in here. Every fat fowl got his Sunday. The traditional Creole thing is
Sunday.
So yes, you are. Oh, look at me! I got A in my test. Oh, look at me! And you're always this and that. You always have everything in order. You're never late. Yeah, every fat fowl. In other words, we used to eat chicken, rice, and beans. It used to be chicken.
Yes.
You can't big meat the rest of the week, but chicken. Mm-hmm. So you are a fat fowl. You're somebody will kill
Sunday's
you.
Coming.
Will have your it means you will have your comeuppance.
Right.
Watch them. Every fat fowl got a Sunday.
That's a good one.
I like that one.
Thank you for sharing these. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ellie.
Before I let you go, just one final question for you. We are in Belize and we've been talking for some time and we've been having a cold beer and some food, some rice and beans and enjoying our evening, our afternoon.
Mhm.
But one of us has to go home. In Belize, in Creole, what's the best way to say goodbye?
See you later.
See you later.
Or saute later, assuming I'll see you again before you leave from your trip. If you mean goodbye, goodbye, like you're leaving on the plane and going, I could say, well, bye. I could just say bye or so long. But probably I say, see you later or till next time. Saute next time.
Saute. So,
Saute next time.
saute next time,
Yeah.
Silvana, and thank you so
Sotay.
much.
Okay, saute next time.
Saute next time, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Okay, thank you very much, Ellie. Thank you.
New episodes of Speaking Tongues are available every Monday, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to like and share episodes with other language lovers like ourselves.